Walking for Wellbeing. Welcome to One Foot in Front of the Other, a series about walking. As you listen, go out for a walk or a roll or a sit, or stay where you are and come on a walk with me instead. I'm going to talk about what walking has been like over the last year or so, how it's changed, how it's been painfully unchanging, and some of the things I've seen, heard and found out along the way. A note on content. In this episode, I talk about being ill with COVID and being in pain. Hi, my name's Caitlin. I make theatre and I love working with people. I've got a lot of houseplants and I like going out dancing, Dolly Parton and climbing mountains. At the end of March 2020, like many people, I was really poorly with COVID, and so for a few weeks I was stuck in my flat. When I could go outside again, the first thing I did was go on a walk to the shop. I was ready to savour the fresh air, the sights and the sounds, the freedom, but in reality things were very different. It felt like my body had forgotten how to move, how to propel itself forward. My joints were stiff, my muscles felt like they'd vanished from not being used, my limbs felt strange and heavy and like they didn't belong to me. The route to Aldi normally takes me 10 minutes at most, but this time I had to sit down 3 times on the way because I was so breathless and tired and in pain, and it took me half an hour. I'm really grateful to the city planners who dotted benches at convenient intervals along the way. Without being to sit down on these, I'm not sure what I would have done. I repeated this walk to the shop countless times in the weeks afterwards. Sometimes because I needed to go to the shop, sometimes just for fresh air, a change of scenery, to stretch my legs. Sometimes I'd come home and cry from the effort. Sometimes this walk would wipe me out for a couple of days and I'd feel like I was back at square one again. As I very, very slowly got better, the trip to the shop and back started to feel less exhausting. Each day I was setting a new personal best. I stopped having to sit down on the way and the world got slightly bigger again. I started walking more, first in the streets, parks and patches of grass around my flat, and then further afield. I keep waiting to reach a state of being finally better, finally back to normal, but it hasn't happened. Some days I'm worse again and some days I can't leave the house, but some days I can walk for hours. I think walking has kept me sane in the last year or so. Even when nothing is improving and everything seems lost, having some semblance of forward motion stops me from being completely paralysed. I've spent a lot of time walking and a lot of time thinking and writing and reading about walking and how, where and why we do it. There are infinite reasons for going on a walk and just as many ways to do so. For fun, exercise, pilgrimage, protest, to explore a place, to pass the time, to commute, to go to the shop, to see friends, to clear your head, in a park, a street, a city, up a mountain, along a beach, in a forest, round a garden. I could talk about walking all day, but in this series of audio pieces, I'm going to talk to you about walking for well-being, walking in nature, walking in the city, and walking with others. I'm going to go for a walk. I've mustered up the motivation, and I'm going. I look out of the window, check the weather app on my phone. How warm is it today? Should I put on my big coat? Is it going to rain? I stand up and walk to the front door. I put on some shoes, put on my headphones, put on my mask, grab my phone, keys, hand sanitizer. I'm going. I ignore the large part of my brain that's screaming, "Go back to bed!" I unlock the door, undo the chain, step out and lock it again. I walk down the corridor, go through a fire door to the lift. I glance at the door to the stairs and then press the button to call the lift anyway. I'm tired and it's a treat. Don't judge me. I wait. I press the button and I wait. And I press the button again, even though I know it probably doesn't work like that, and pressing the button again is futile. The doors creak open and I step in. The lift clanks and I idly wonder if today is the day I get trapped or plummet to my death. Turns out it isn't. and when it reaches the ground floor I step out, turn left, go through the front door, glance up at the sky, pause for a second while I take my mask off. I take a deep breath and put one foot in front of the other, with no plan at all, just my achy body and the will to keep going. At this point, more than a year into the pandemic, it seems like we're all really fed up of the idea of going for a walk. I know I am. But once I get out there and take the first couple of steps, it's lovely. I've been for a lot more walks over the last year or so, and I've got a hunch that I'm not alone here. Some have been long, big days out with friends, but most have been short, simply a way of getting out the house each day for a bit of fresh air and a change of scenery. Maybe you've had a similar experience in the last year or so. I wonder what you think of when you think of going for a walk. I wonder what pops into your head. Perhaps memories? Are they of beautiful hikes somewhere high up with a view for miles? Of walking to the corner shop in the cold? Are they boring? Are they painful? Are you remembering a time you hurt your knee or forgot your umbrella or were followed or harassed? It's not all good. And I know not everyone can go for a walk, not everyone wants to go for a walk, but bear with me. I've been a walker for a long time. I've never had a car, so walking is usually how I get from A to B. It's a way of navigating and negotiating everyday life. Walking is how I understand the world. I love climbing mountains, but I'm also satisfied by a nice walk around the park. But why am I so into it? Why is it so good for us, and why have so many of us relied on it so much recently? Walking improves your cardiovascular fitness, strengthens your bones, builds muscle and boosts your immune function. It reduces your risk of heart disease, osteoporosis, stroke, dementia and several types of cancer. Going for a nice brisk walk can also set off production of endorphins, which inhibit transmission of pain signals and make you feel happier. Walking is also often hailed as being brilliant for mindfulness. It's a chance to pay attention properly, to look at something completely ordinary from a different perspective. How many muscles, bones, joints, tendons, ligaments, nerves do we use without even thinking about it each time we take a step? My thoughts are less likely to get stuck when I'm walking. I'm less likely to fixate, to get trapped in a spiral. There's a well-established trend of people going for very long and very difficult walks to heal themselves. And when I say long and difficult, I mean it. In 1995, Cheryl Strayed walked a grueling 1,100 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail from near the Mexico-USA border all the way to Washington state. She walked alone, leaving everything behind after her mother's death, her heroin addiction and her marriage breaking down. In Wild, her fierce and beautiful memoir of the journey, she said that perhaps by being forced to focus on my physical suffering, some of my emotional suffering would fade away. Wild is a detailed account of the walk, the landscapes, and the people and the difficulties she encountered on the way, but also a reflection on her life and the events that led up to her abandoning everything to go on a walk. She uses the constant motion and the intense effort of the walk to work through, coming out of the other side more ready to face the world. There are numerous other books and accounts of people reaching rock bottom and taking off to go on a long, punishing walk, like a modern form of pilgrimage. Most of these walkers go alone. As Cheryl Strayed said, the beauty of walking alone is that every triumph is yours, every consequence of every mistake is yours, everything that you have to figure out is on you. Walking is restorative. It helps you work through pain, it improves your physical and mental well-being. But what happens when it doesn't? When it's painful and difficult and a short walk to the shop ruins you for a few days? Getting better isn't always linear and it isn't always guaranteed. We're told that perseverance means payoff, and sometimes it does. But sometimes relentlessly trying can leave us worse off. Knowing when to walk and when to rest has been a steep learning curve for me recently. People often say that the hardest bit of going for a walk is just getting out there. Once you've made yourself do it, gone out the door and taken those first few steps, the rest takes care of itself. But this, of course, is bollocks if you live in a body that's ill or in pain. Sometimes, the beginning of a walk is hugely liberating. Yeah, those joints feel a bit creaky for a minute or so, but soon everything will be great. Then there's a high, a rush, a moment where things feel great. And then, suddenly everything hurts. My limbs feel like they've tripled in weight and my chest is tight and I can't quite catch my breath. There's a man behind me getting impatient because I'm moving so slowly, but I can't do anything about that. And despite the brisk breeze on my face, all I want to do is lie down on the pavement and go to sleep. Once you're out, the only choices are to keep going or to retreat. But actually, in retreating, you sort of have to keep going as well. Some days, I can't leave my flat. And so instead, I close my eyes and remember a walk up a mountain that feels like it was decades ago. The wind is howling and whistling in my ears, and I'm trying desperately to remain upright, leaning in, feeling all my muscles tense and flex and change as the gusts batter me. I'm exhausted, but I'm happy. All I can think of is where I am right now. The effort of trying to stay here is huge. But then the wind lulls for a moment, and suddenly being upright isn't so difficult. I look up and I can see for miles. I can see silvery streams glinting despite the overcast day. I see lakes that look solid iron grey. Far away I see rivers braid and dance and twist into the glittering sea, where there is endless sun even though here I'm half in the clouds. When the wind stops, there is nothing but the view. My edges soften and blur and bleed into the sky. The wind again. I walk on. All I can do is look and think, carefully think, about putting one foot in front of the other, on the ground which is peat, then stone, then rough-hewn step, then slippery wet grass, then treacherous scree that slides away as I try it. Each step is precarious and requires me to sense almost psychically before I tread what the outcome will be. I'm high up, and there is a hair's breadth between me and the sky, and if I let my mind wander as much as my feet, then I'll be away into the air. So I focus on my steps. I pass a man coming down whose face looks like he has seen some things. We say a polite countryside hello, and I ask him what it's like on the top. All he says is that you need to have your wits about you. I smile and think, it'll be fine. But not 10 minutes later, the view and the wind and the edge and the air and the pull of the valley below paralyse me. I can't go on. But I can't go back. I can barely stand upright and I'm panicking, but I look down at my feet, and there I am, on the side of the mountain, trying to stay with myself, and all I can do is lift one foot up and eke it forward, however imperceptibly small that distance might be, and then do it again and again and again. Progress is progress, however small, I tell myself. But there are times when I am very definitely not making progress. I'm getting more ill. I'm going backwards. What now? How do you carry on when everything feels lost? I wonder what the world looks like for you today. Perhaps you're out for a walk and the slight breeze on your face wakes you up. The sun in your skin restores you. Perhaps you're sitting outside and you can see the birds. Perhaps you're watching your neighbours follow the same routines they have for the last year. Perhaps it's pissing it down in your inside. What's the most beautiful thing you can see? Can you see the sky? When it rains, I love looking up at the clouds all swirling metal drama. I hope you're warm enough. I hope you've got a cup of tea, a hot chocolate, a biscuit, a warm blanket, a friend, a cat, a dog. I hope you've got whatever warms you from the inside out. When I couldn't leave the house last year, I watched people from my window quite a lot. Not in a weird way, but just in the way that when you're craving the outside, your gaze is naturally drawn there. From my window, I can see into people's flats. I see a couple who have a cigarette and a cuddle on their balcony at the same time each day. A woman who spends hours doing aerobics every evening. A party, even though we're not supposed to mix households. When it's warm, I can see a black and white cat basking in the sun. I can see a tiny slice of hillside way in the distance, framed by buildings. It changes colour with the sun and the seasons. A deep blue in the early morning, almost purple in spring from the heather, green when it's lush and summery, orange, pink, peach when the sun sets just right. A sad wintry grey-brown. White when it snows, black, twinkling with lights at night. I stare at it for hours, wishing I was up there with the sky. There's a purism around walking. A right way to do it, involving fresh air, solitude, nature, health, goodness, simplicity. But this isn't how most of us walk most of the time. We breathe in polluted air, walk encumbered by others. We're not in perfect health, we're in busy cities. We get lost, fear for our safety, walk out of necessity rather than pleasure. Walking in reality might mean dragging yourself to the shop or the doctors because you need food or care or medicine. Walking with purpose sounds powerful, free, independent. But its opposite is walking aimlessly and full of joy and without a care in the world. The last year or so has been hideous for many of us. A question I find myself asking, being asked, hearing other people ask and be asked, is how do you keep going? When everything's terrible, how do you move forward and not give up? The only way to keep going is to keep going. There have been times when I've decided to climb a hill, and I've looked at my destination in the distance, only to find that it seems impossibly far. But by pressing on, one foot in front of the other, making small, continuous progress, I did eventually get there.